Stop waiting for permission to be powerful. The life you want is not a lottery. It is a direct consequence of the mind you build. Listen closely. You are currently running on software that is obsolete, fragile, and programmed for compliance. You believe vulnerability is strength. You believe your feelings are facts. You believe you need to earn your confidence. All lies. This is not another feel-good guide. This is a cold, hard operating manual for the human brain. Over the next hour, you will learn to strip away the emotional clutter, incinerate self-doubt, and install the 7 non-negotiable habits that transform your mind into a fortress, a mind that is absolutely, definitively, unbreakable. Do not pause. Do not overthink. The work begins now. Chapter 1. The silent cost of seeking validation. Stop proving, start doing. Stop. Look at your phone. Look at your life. How much of your energy do you spend hunting? Hunting for approval. Hunting for affirmation. Hunting for that tiny fleeting surge of serotonin that tells you for a single desperate moment that you are enough. This is not a life. This is a sickness. This is the silent cost of seeking validation. You've been programmed to believe that external praise is currency. It is not. It is counterfeit. It is a biological tripwire. When that like comes in, when that boss nods, when that peer compliments your effort, your brain releases a flash of dopamine. It feels good. It feels safe. And it immediately rewires your neural pathways to seek that external hit again. Listen closely to the truth. Validation is a low-interest loan on your self-worth. You are borrowing your confidence from strangers. You are placing your internal security in the hands of people who do not have your best interest at heart. You are outsourcing your identity. This is why you are fragile. This is why you are easily derailed. The minute the applause stops, the minute the criticism lands, your mind collapses, because its foundation was built on sand. You have a choice. You can keep chasing the approval of the crowd, or you can build a fortress within. The validation trap. The validation trap is simple. You feel a drive to achieve, but instead of using that drive for deep solitary work, you use it to perform. You post the picture of your progress. You announce the goal. You seek pre-approval before the work is even done. Why do you do this? Because announcing the goal gives you the feeling of accomplishment without requiring the discipline of execution. You get the dopamine hit for the intention, not for the effort. You are training your mind to be addicted to intention. It is not about popularity, it is about dependency. That is the key. Every time you require external data, a comment, a compliment, a look to confirm your path, you create a point of failure. You create a switch that someone else can flip to turn off your motivation. Your mind does not need their permission. It does not need their congratulations. The pursuit of an unbreakable mind begins with the termination of this external addiction. You must cut the cord. Validation is a low-interest loan on your self-worth. Pay it back and declare your independence. The Executioner's Creed. We must institute an immediate, drastic mental shift. This is the Executioner's Creed. Stop proving your worth to others. Start proving your competence to yourself. This is the shift from performance to production. From talking about the goal to silently finishing the goal. The true test of mental strength is not how you handle praise, it is how you handle silence. The person with a fragile mind needs a daily audience. The person with the unbreakable mind needs a locked door and an urgent task. Think about your last major goal. Did you post it on social media? Did you announce it to your family? If you did, you were seeking a reward before the sacrifice was made. You were diluting the necessary internal tension required for high-output action. The new protocol is simple: do the work in the dark. Your competence is your silent witness. Let the result be the announcement. The shift from posting a plan to silently completing a monumental project is not just a tactical move, it is a philosophical declaration. It tells your subconscious mind definitively that the reward is the completion of the task, not the reaction to the task. The power is in the action, not the acknowledgement. That is the key. You do not need their permission. You need your effort. The executioner does not ask for applause before they strike. They simply execute. You must adopt this creed. Focus on the output, not the ovation. The immunity protocol. What happens when you receive criticism? The fragile mind shatters. It internalizes the negative judgment, allowing one external opinion to negate weeks of effort. What happens when you receive praise? The fragile mind softens. It celebrates prematurely, allowing a positive judgment to slow down the necessary grinding work. Both are poison if they stop your progress. The unbreakable mind installs the immunity protocol. This is a single powerful mental filter that you apply instantly to all external judgment, positive or negative. The response is always the same: so what? They loved your presentation, so what did you hit your defined internal metric? They said your work was sloppy, so what does their criticism contain? Objective, actionable data that will improve your process, if not disregard. The only metric that matters is your standard of excellence. This standard is defined by you in solitude, based on the highest level of competence you can possibly achieve. Your internal response to external praise must be thank you. Now get back to work. Your internal response to external criticism must be thank you for the data or thank you for the noise. Now get back to work. This is how you build a fortress. You deny access to external emotional factors. You create a separation between yourself and the performance. You allow no one to dictate your mental state. Validation is a low-interest loan on your self-worth. Cancel the debt. Stop proving and start doing. Mental toughness is not about having thick skin, it is about making your core inaccessible. You have the power to choose what penetrates your focus. Deny the validation trap. Embrace the silent creed of the executioner. You have the power to forge that fortress. You have mastered the external game. Now you must master the fundamental relationship between your mind and the world. Your mind is currently hijacked by every fleeting emotion. It is time to take control. My friend, this is where the real work begins. Forget the audience, forget the likes. Your peace is worth more than their praise. Go lock the door and prove your competence to the only person who matters. You. Chapter 2. Your feelings are not facts. Anchor yourself in objective reality. You are not broken. You are simply running an inefficient program. The greatest vulnerability of the modern mind is its belief in the sanctity of emotion. You have been taught that your feelings are your truth. That your internal state is a moral guide. That to be authentic is to let your current mood dictate your actions. This is the definition of fragility. Mental toughness is not about eliminating feeling. It is about stripping feeling of its power to command your action. It is about acknowledging your internal state and then immediately bypassing it in favor of objective, disciplined reality. Your feelings are not facts. Your feelings are noise. They are the internal weather system, rain, sun, or a sudden violent storm. You do not cancel your entire life because it is raining outside. You put on a jacket and execute the plan. Your emotional state is no different. Listen closely to the core thesis of this chapter. A feeling is a signal, not a sentence. Your feelings signal discomfort, excitement, anxiety, or resentment. They do not issue commands. They do not write your future. A fragile mind treats a feeling of fear as a sentence of defeat. An unbreakable mind treats a feeling of fear as a signal that the moment requires courage. You have a choice. You can be the victim of your internal climate, or you can be the master of your response. The emotional hijack. Why do you struggle to start the work? Because you feel tired. Why do you lash out at a colleague? Because you feel disrespected. Why do you quit the project? Because you feel overwhelmed. This is the emotional hijack. You are allowing a temporary biologically driven surge of hormones and chemicals to override your pre-committed high-value objectives. You are letting the lizard brain run the mission control center. The fragile person is perpetually waiting for the feeling of motivation to arrive before they execute. Motivation is a phantom. It is a reward for action, not the prerequisite for action. It is not about sensitivity, it is about control. That is the key. When you allow emotion to dictate behavior, you abdicate responsibility. You can always justify quitting because you felt bad. You can always justify procrastination because you felt uninspired. The unbreakable mind operates on a single principle: scheduled action overrides spontaneous feeling. You do not need to feel like working. You need to work. You do not need to feel confident. You need to act with confidence. The feeling will follow the action. This is the only reliable path to mental mastery. The 5-second rule for intervention. How do you break the emotional hijack in the moment with a cognitive gap? Most people experience a stimulus and immediately dive into the response. Stimulus: anxiety about the tough email. Response: close the laptop and check social media. The circuit is instant and destructive. We must create a pause. We call this the 5-second rule for intervention. When the emotional signal arrives, the surge of anger, the wave of panic, the dull inertia of procrastination, You must stop the automatic response circuit. The instruction is precise. When the trigger fires, you pause for 5 seconds and identify the emotional signal before you allow any physical action. This technique is not complicated. It requires discipline. You receive a challenging text. Before you type a furious reply, pause. Count 5 seconds. Identify the signal: anger. You sit down to start deep work and feel the urge to stand up, pause. Count 5 seconds. Identify the signal: inertia. This 5-second window is your battleground. It is the space between stimulus and response where choice resides. It gives your higher logical brain the chance to intervene and impose the plan. Consider the classic example: the CEO who receives a frustrating report. Their automatic signal is stress and the desire to vent. But the unbreakable mind intervenes. The CEO decides to leave the email in the draft folder and wait 10 minutes before rereading it. Why 10 minutes? Because the initial volatile emotional spike will have subsided. They are not responding to the feeling of anger, they are responding to the fact of the report. This is not about being cold. It is about being effective. A feeling is a signal, not a sentence. Use the 5-second rule to identify the signal and then execute the sentence you wrote. The reality filter. To reinforce this gap, you must constantly engage the reality filter. This is a Stoic principle of objective categorization. When a situation arises, you must subject it to 2 questions. What is the objective, undeniable fact of this situation? What part of the situation is my emotional interpretation? The fact is the client rejected the proposal. The interpretation is I am a failure. My career is over. They hate my work. The fact is I have 45 new emails. The interpretation is I am overwhelmed. This task is impossible. I should quit. The unbreakable mind only responds to fact. It ruthlessly ignores the interpretation, recognizing it as the noise generated by a mind trying to protect you from perceived threat. You do not need their permission to discard the emotional noise. The only thing you can truly control is your next action. The failure of the proposal is a fact. Your next step is a choice. The volume of the emails is a fact. Your prioritized work block is a choice. It is not about ignoring the pain, it is about analyzing the data. That is the key. Your emotional interpretation changes nothing about the external world. It only serves to reduce your capacity to respond logically and powerfully. The unbreakable mind is not the mind that never feels fear. It is the mind that executes the mission in spite of the fear. It feels the signal fear and chooses the sentence courage by grounding itself in the undeniable facts of its plan and its principles. You have now broken the dependency on internal emotional noise. You have established control over your internal state. The next step is to apply that control to your entire trajectory. Stop allowing escape routes. You know your plan. You know your principles. Now go use that 5-second window every time the chaos starts to whisper. Chapter 3. Incinerate the escape routes. Commitment is a single-direction street. You think you are being smart. You think you are being prudent. You tell yourself that being mentally tough means having contingency plans. You are wrong. The need for a parachute is proof that you never intended to fly. Mental weakness isn't found in failure. It is found in hesitation. It is found in the soft, comfortable knowledge that you have an escape route. We are discussing the nature of real commitment. The kind that leaves you no choice but to succeed. This chapter demands you take the gasoline of your excuses and light a match. The core principle here is simple: commitment is a single-direction street. There is no U-turn. There is no off-ramp. The illusion of options. You call it optionality. You call it a plan B. We call it self-sabotage. A plan B doesn't exist to save you from a catastrophic failure. A plan B exists to give you permission to ease off when plan A gets difficult. It is a psychological safety net that ensures your commitment to plan A will be fractured, partial, and ultimately insufficient. If your mind knows that retreat is an option, it will choose retreat the moment the pressure exceeds the comfort level. And the moment pressure exceeds comfort is precisely where mental toughness is forged. You have a choice. You can live in the comfortable gray area of trying, or you can live in the unforgiving black and white of doing. The option is the obstacle. Look at your own life. Where are your projects stalling? They are stalling where your effort is fractional. Where you are working on 2 things at 50% commitment each, telling yourself you are being diversified. You are not. You are being timid. You are ensuring that neither endeavor receives the necessary, absolute focus required for true excellence. It is not about risk management. It is about total resource allocation. That is the key. The cost of optionality is not the financial loss of Plan B. The cost is the dilution of the intensity needed for Plan A. You are trading certainty of success for comfort of mind. Stop negotiating with your own potential. Burn the boats. We must learn from the masters of irreversible commitment. Think of the Roman general, Hernán Cortés, arriving in the New World. His famous first act wasn't to fight a battle, it was to burn his ships. Why? To eliminate the physical possibility of retreat. The soldiers had only two options, win or die. There was no going back. That definitive lack of choice transforms capability into necessity. It forces the mind to stop conserving energy for the retreat and allocate 100% of all resources to forward motion. This is the principle you must adopt. Burn the boats of your Plan B. How do you do this in the modern world? You create irreversible pressure points that demand action. You commit a large, non-refundable deposit to the coaching program, forcing you to utilize it. You publicly stake your reputation on a specific, measurable outcome by a specific date. You eliminate the time you spend on the alternative career path, physically deleting the files and cutting the professional ties. This is not about being reckless. It is about being responsible to your highest commitment. You do not need their permission to be this decisive. When retreat is impossible, your mind stops wasting resources on doubt. The energy previously used for worrying about what if it fails is immediately rerouted into how to make it succeed. This is the single greatest surge of productive mental power you can unlock. The option is the obstacle. Remove it. The identity lock. The ultimate form of commitment is not an action, it is an identity. The fragile mind says, I am trying to be a writer. The unbreakable mind simply states, I am a writer. The difference is everything. When you are trying, you can quit. If you fail, the identity is safe. You can shrug and say, well, I tried. You never fully absorb the blow because you never fully committed the identity. When you are the thing, failure is not a signal to quit, it is a diagnostic event to improve the system. The unbreakable mind doesn't try to be successful, it is successful, and the actions it takes are simply proof of that self-definition. The action follows the identity, not the other way around. You stop trying to be fit, you are a fit person, and fit people do not skip their training block. You stop trying to be financially disciplined, you are a financially disciplined person, and that person does not make frivolous purchases. This is the identity lock. When you define yourself by the standard you wish to uphold, your behavior is no longer a battle of willpower, it becomes a matter of integrity. You must act in alignment with who you declare yourself to be. It is not about false confidence. It is about definitive self-definition. That is the key. You have a choice. You can remain a person who wants to do things, or you can become a person who does things. This transformation requires you to burn every escape route and accept the full weight of your declared identity. You have solidified your commitment and recognized that your true power lies in the irrevocable nature of your decision. The question now is, what do you commit to? You must replace the chaotic whims of motivation with a rigid non-negotiable protocol. Close that back door. Go burn your ships. Chapter 4. The default is decay. Install your non-negotiable operating system. You woke up today with the best of intentions. That's good. But intentions are worthless. You felt motivated yesterday. You committed yourself to the plan. That's also good. But motivation is temporary. It is a fleeting resource that evaporates by 10 a.m. The unbreakable mind can't be built on intention or motivation. It must be built on systematic necessity. It must be built on the unforgiving logic of a machine that simply executes its programming. Here is the single terrifying truth you must internalize. The default is decay. If you are not actively ruthlessly building and enforcing your system, your mind will always choose the path of least resistance. It will choose comfort over challenge, distraction over deep work, and compliance over competence. This chapter is your technical manual. We are installing the non-negotiable operating system that runs your life, not your feelings. Listen to the core law of production. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. The tyranny of the blank slate. Every morning, you face what we call the tyranny of the blank slate. You wake up, and your schedule is empty. Your mind is free. And a free mind is a chaotic, weak mind. When there's no pre-committed mandatory structure, your brain defaults to the easiest option. It prioritizes the urgent noise of others over the important work of your own future. It chases the low-hanging fruit of email, social media, and trivial tasks. It's not about laziness, it's about entropy. That's the key. Entropy is the natural drift toward disorder. It requires energy and discipline to fight it. Every great mind throughout history understood that freedom is earned through constraint. You must lock in the most important actions before the chaos of the day has a chance to invade. If you start your day by checking your phone, you have already surrendered. You have invited the world to set your agenda. You've told your mind that its highest priority is reacting to external stimuli. You become a passenger, not the pilot. You have a choice. You can let the day happen to you, or you can force the day to happen according to your design. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. Your most valuable work will never get done if it's merely a suggestion in your mental to-do list. It must be a non-negotiable appointment. The 3 pillars of power. To fight decay, you must install the 3 pillars of power. These are the 3 non-negotiable rituals that must be executed daily to reinforce your mental and physical fortress. These are not suggestions. These are mandatory system reboots. Pillar 1. The movement protocol. Mandatory, non-negotiable physical exertion. 30 minutes of elevated heart rate. You don't need their permission to sweat. This isn't for vanity, it's for cognitive function. It clears the emotional residue of yesterday and signals to your mind that you are capable of imposing effort on your body. Pillar 2. The deep work block. Mandatory. The first 90 to 120 minutes of your day are dedicated to your highest value single focus task. No email. No meetings. No notifications. This is the time when you produce the result that actually moves the needle on your goals. This block is sacred. Nothing short of a true emergency can violate it. Pillar 3. The planning and review lock. Mandatory. A final 15-minute period at the end of the workday where you review your execution and set the single mandatory task for the next day's deep work block. This ensures you do not wake up to a blank slate. You are programming tomorrow's victory today. These 3 pillars must be executed regardless of how you feel. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to execute the system. That's the key. It's not about optimization, it's about duty. You owe this execution to the person you are becoming. The streak of strength. Your new system is only as strong as your consistency. The unbreakable mind isn't defined by moments of brilliance. It is defined by the relentless, monotonous execution of the daily minimum. We introduce the streak of strength. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a non-zero day on all 3 pillars. You will have days where the effort is minimal. You'll have days where you only manage 10 minutes of movement instead of 30. That's acceptable, provided the effort is non-zero. A 10-minute failure is not a collapse of the system. But here is the law: missing 2 days is a collapse of the system. If you miss 1 day, pillar 1 or 2 for example, you have created a problem. The mental inertia of a missed day is powerful. It makes the next day easier to miss. If you miss 2 consecutive days on any pillar, your system is broken. You are back in the territory of the fragile mind. You have proven to your subconscious that your commitments are flexible and negotiable. You must fight like a fanatic to maintain the streak. Every morning, you have a choice: maintain the discipline that guarantees your future, or default to the decay that guarantees failure. The power of the streak is that it turns your discipline into an identity game. You are fighting for the continuous line, not the individual point. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. Install your system. Fight the decay. Maintain the streak. You have solidified your daily execution protocol, but execution guarantees one thing above all resistance. You will face failure. You will face pain. The fragile person seeks to avoid this pain. The unbreakable person seeks to use it. Chapter 5. The Anti-Fragile Mindset. Use failure as fuel, not as an exit sign. You just spent 4 chapters installing a discipline system. Now, let me tell you this truth: your system will fail. You will miss the streak. You will execute a flawed plan. You will be rejected. You will lose the deal. The fragile person treats failure as proof of inadequacy. They stop. They internalize the pain. They allow one setback to negate 100 hours of effort. The unbreakable mind treats failure as essential input. It is not a moral judgment. It is data. We are installing the anti-fragile mindset. Fragile things break under stress. Robust things withstand stress. Anti-fragile things get stronger when exposed to stress. Your goal is not to survive the blow. It is to use the blow to reinforce your structure. Listen to the core principle: resistance is not rejection, it is refinement. Your current interpretation of setback is wrong. You believe pain is a sign to stop. Pain is the only sign that you are pushing against a genuine frontier. If it doesn't hurt, it is not working. You have a choice. You can run from the necessary stress, or you can run directly into it and demand the lesson. Welcome the pain. Stop treating failure like a shock. Start treating it like an appointment. The gym analogy is simple, but its application is total. Your muscle doesn't grow when you lift the weight. It grows when the muscle fibers tear under stress. The pain is the necessary catalyst for hypertrophy. If you avoid the pain, you avoid the growth. The same rule applies to your mind. Mental toughness isn't about the absence of stress. It is about the intentional seeking of resistance, the difficult conversation, the impossible project, the new skill that guarantees immediate, humbling failure. You don't need their permission to fail. Failure is mandatory. The fragile mind asks, how can I avoid this problem? The anti-fragile mind asks, how much can I gain from this problem? It's not about being masochistic, it's about being pragmatic. That is the key. Every time you face a challenge and fail, your mind gains information. Your capability is expanded. Your error margin shrinks. You become harder to kill. Do not run from the pain of a setback. Welcome it. It is the currency of your growth. When you feel that tightness in your chest, that sting of humiliation, declare to yourself resistance is not rejection, it is refinement. I am getting stronger right now. The Post-Mortem protocol. The greatest destroyer of progress is the self-criticism loop. The moment of failure triggers not analysis, but a toxic cycle of emotional abuse. I am not smart enough. I knew I couldn't do it. Why did I even try? This is the emotional hijack taking revenge. You must stop it instantly. When a setback occurs, the missed deadline, the failed launch, the major error, you do not collapse. You execute the post-mortem protocol. This is a 3-step objective review with zero emotion allowed. What was the hypothesis? State clearly what you thought would happen. Example, I hypothesized that the product would sell 100 units based on the ad spend. What was the objective data/result? State clearly what did happen. Example, the product sold 12 units. The ad spend was $500. What is the one singular adjustment for the next iteration? Identify the single, most important variable to change. Example, the landing page copy needs to be rewritten, focusing on benefit, not feature. The protocol forces you out of the emotional abyss and into the role of the objective scientist. You are not judging yourself, you are analyzing the experiment. It's not about avoiding blame, it's about accelerating learning. That is the key. You don't need their permission to pivot. You need the data. The post-mortem protocol is how you get it. This is how you transform failure from an endpoint into a launching pad. The iteration cycle. The single defining trait of the fragile mind is stopping. They hit failure, they feel the pain, and they retreat, often forever. They use the failure as their exit sign. The true sign of unbreakability is simply accelerating the iteration cycle. Your competitive advantage is not your genius. It is your speed of adjustment. The faster you move through the failure analysis adjustment cycle, the faster you get to the required solution. The problem is never the failure itself. The problem is the time wasted between the failure and the next attempt. You lose months to self-pity, doubt, and fear of the next attempt. The unbreakable mind allows no time for this. Failure happens. Fact. Post-mortem protocol executed. Discipline. Adjustment is made. Action. New experiment is launched. Commitment. This cycle must be brutal, fast, and relentless. It means you may launch 3 failed attempts in the time your fragile competitor takes to recover from their first. You have a choice: lick your wounds and slow down, or analyze the data and accelerate. You do not need their permission to keep going. You need to uphold your identity. Resistance is not rejection, it is refinement. Embrace the stress. Use the failure. Accelerate the cycle. You have now established the ability to use resistance for growth. But listen, your challenge is no longer the external world. It is the internal management of your focus. You must now protect the engine of creation from the corrosive power of distraction. Chapter 6. Stop consuming. Start creating. The Creator's Edge. Your attention is under siege. Every application, every headline, every notification is designed with one malicious goal: to steal the most valuable non-renewable asset you possess, your focus. The fragile mind is a consumer. It spends its prime hours scrolling, watching, reading, and reacting. It believes that simply staying informed is progress. It believes that passive absorption is preparation. This is a lie. This is the passive poison. The unbreakable mind is a creator. It aggressively protects its focus. It understands that you do not build a fortress by watching others build theirs. You build it by producing the brick, mixing the mortar, and setting the stone. The central law of mental power is this: consumption is compliance. Creation is power. When you consume, you comply with someone else's agenda. When you create, you impose your own will upon the world. The shift from consumer to creator is the ultimate act of mental toughness. You have a choice. You can let the world fill your schedule with noise, or you can fill your schedule with undeniable output. The passive poison. Let's be precise about the cost of consumption. It is not just a waste of time. It is a neural training program for weakness. Excessive consumption, be it social media, endless news feeds, or binge entertainment, trains your brain to be reactive and distracted. It shrinks your attention span. It accustoms your reward system to low-effort, high-frequency stimulation. When you finally sit down to do the difficult deep work that requires 90 minutes of single focus, your brain screams rebellion. Why? Because you have conditioned it to expect a reward every 30 seconds. This is the tyranny of the endless feed. It promises information but delivers only inertia. It keeps you permanently preparing, permanently reacting, and permanently not doing the work. It is not about being informed, it is about being generative. That is the key. The greatest irony is that the person consumed by news about world events often has no control over their own personal economy or schedule. They are experts on global chaos and novices on personal discipline. Stop outsourcing your mental effort to CNN and Instagram. You do not need their permission to look away. You need to declare war on distraction. Consumption is compliance. Creation is power. Stop complying. Start imposing. The minimum viable output, MVO. To reverse the flow from passive absorption to active imposition, you must implement the minimum viable output, MVO. This is a commitment to produce one single unit of meaningful output every day. This is the ultimate executioner's creed. Your MVO is the measurable, tangible proof that you showed up as a creator, not a spectator. It must be tied to your highest value goals. If you are a writer, your MVO is 500 words of first draft, deep work content. If you are a salesperson, your MVO is 10 cold calls, researched and executed. If you are an entrepreneur, your MVO is one critical line of code written or one financial projection analyzed. The MVO is not about perfection. It is about production. It trains your mind to operate in a generative state, forcing you to solve problems, make decisions, and move the project forward. The quantity is minimal, it is viable, but its psychological impact is monumental. It proves to your subconscious that you are a person who makes things. It reinforces your identity lock. Do you feel uninspired? Execute the MVO anyway. Do you feel tired? Execute the MVO anyway. A feeling is a signal, not a sentence. You have a choice. You can end the day with a list of things you consumed, or you can end the day with one thing you created. The creator is tough. The consumer is soft. The noise filter. To achieve the MVO, you must aggressively protect the cognitive space where creation occurs. This means installing the noise filter. The unbreakable mind recognizes that its attention is the core resource. Every single distraction is a tax on your potential. You must be ruthless in protecting your boundaries. The notification purge. Turn off all non-essential notifications permanently. Email, news, social media, all of it. They exist to pull you out of deep work. Deny them access. The unsubscribe and unfollow policy. Your information diet must be as disciplined as your food diet. Ruthlessly remove every source of shallow, low-value information. Unfollow the noise. Unsubscribe from the newsletters that do not directly feed your highest goal. The isolation protocol. When you enter your deep work block, you must be isolated. Headphones on. Door locked. Phone out of reach. This is not antisocial, it is procreation. You are building a time fortress. The silence you seek is not empty. The silence is filled with the energy that was once dissipated by reaction and compliance. In that intentional silence, your power is forged. It is not about being difficult, it is about being focused. That is the key. You do not need their permission to protect your mind. You need the courage to deny their demands. Consumption is compliance. Creation is power. Stop passively absorbing information. Start actively imposing your will on the world with your minimum viable output. You have secured your focus and committed to creation. Now you must address the final psychological anchor that holds you back, the constant search for external excuses. You must take full, absolute control. Chapter 7. The Doctrine of Radical Self-Responsibility. No excuses, ever. Stop talking about the economy. Stop talking about your childhood. Stop talking about your difficult boss. This is the chapter where we demand total accountability. This is the ultimate test of the unbreakable mind. We are installing the doctrine of radical self-responsibility. The fragile mind is a master historian of its own setbacks. It keeps meticulous records of every external variable that justifies its current position. I would be successful if only the market was better. I would be consistent if my partner was more supportive. I can't change because of my past. This is the language of self-imprisonment. This is the victim's voice. The truth is that all external factors, the macroeconomy, global politics, the actions of other people, are merely variables. They are not determinants. They can't force your action. They can't dictate your attitude. Your circumstances are facts. Your response to them is your choice. Listen to the only philosophy that guarantees true power. Blame is a weakness. Responsibility is a weapon. When you assign blame, you surrender control. You hand your agency to the person or event you are complaining about. When you assume responsibility, even for things outside your control, you immediately regain your power to act. You have a choice. You can remain a casualty of circumstance, or you can become the cause of your own success. The victim's voice. The victim narrative is insidious because it feels safe. It is a psychological shield that protects your ego from the pain of effort. If you can successfully blame the environment, then your potential remains intact. You didn't fail, the world failed you. We must systematically dismantle this narrative. The fragile person is perpetually waiting for the perfect conditions before they execute their plan. The economy must be perfect. The timing must be perfect. The motivation must be perfect. You don't need their permission to start. You need the discipline to start in the middle of the mess. It's not about ignoring facts, it's about disregarding limits. That's the key. Yes, the market is tough. Yes, your competitor is well-funded. These are facts. The fragile person uses these facts as excuses. The unbreakable mind uses these facts as the starting line for strategic action. The truth of the external world changes nothing about your imperative to execute your pillars. Stop looking outward for the reason you stopped. Look inward for the reason you must start again. Blame is a weakness. Responsibility is a weapon. Use the weapon. Own the inputs, own the outputs. The unbreakable mind operates on a strict input-output protocol. You cannot directly control the output. You can't force a sale. You can't force a market rally. You can't force the project to succeed. The output is a result of forces both internal and external. However, you have absolute control over your inputs. The inputs are the variables that belong solely to you. Your effort, the number of hours you dedicate to deep work. Your schedule, your adherence to the 3 pillars of power. Your attitude, your immediate response to setbacks. Your preparation, the level of skill and analysis you bring to the task. The discipline is to focus 100% of your energy exclusively on controlling these inputs. The result, the output, is simply a consequence. If the output is poor, you don't whine about the market. You accept the result as data, analyze your inputs, and make a surgical adjustment. If you control the inputs, you have the right to claim the output, good or bad, as a product of your own system. When you win, you won because of your discipline. When you fail, you failed because of a flaw in your system, which is yours to fix. It's not about being perfect, it's about being fixable. That's the key. You don't need their permission to take credit for the failure. You need the courage to own the lesson it provides. The instant correct. The final skill of radical self-responsibility is the instant correct. The victim's voice is a habit. It is a reflex. It is the first thing that tries to escape your lips when pressure arrives. I couldn't do it because. Your job is to interrupt this reflex immediately. You must catch the excuse forming, stop it mid-sentence, and replace it with a declarative statement of responsibility. The process is interruption, replacement, action. The reflex, I missed the workout because I was too tired from a late meeting. The instant correct, stop, my responsibility is to manage my schedule to protect my movement protocol. I will do 10 minutes of non-zero effort right now. The action, execute the 10 minutes. The reflex, the project is delayed because that other department hasn't given me the data yet. The instant correct, stop, my responsibility is to find an alternate data source or to communicate the blockage aggressively to leadership. I will send the priority follow-up email in the next 5 minutes. The action, send the email. This habit transforms you from a powerless victim into a powerful problem solver. It redirects the energy of the excuse into the fuel for your next action. Blame is a weakness. Responsibility is a weapon. Choose the weapon. Deploy the instant correct. You have now claimed absolute ownership over your actions and your system. You have closed the door on excuses. The next step is to protect the essential environment required for this power to thrive, your isolation and your focus. Chapter 8. The Art of Productive Isolation. Protect your deep work. You have built the system. You have burned the boats. You have claimed full responsibility. Now, you must defend your turf. The single biggest threat to your system isn't laziness. It is interruption. It is the constant low-grade psychological warfare waged against your focus by every person and platform seeking your attention. The fragile mind is perpetually available. It operates in a state of constant low-level reaction, the ping-pong of emails, meetings, and quick chats. It confuses frantic activity with progress. The unbreakable mind understands the strategic value of absence. It practices the art of productive isolation. It knows that true power is forged when you are alone with an urgent problem and an uncompromising deadline. The core principle is an accounting truth. Shallow work pays the bills. Deep work buys the future. Most of your time is spent in shallow work, responding to email, attending mandatory meetings, scheduling, and logistics. This work is necessary, but it is low cognitive, easily replicable, and generates low value. It keeps you busy. It does not make you powerful. Mental toughness requires you to systematically carve out time for deep work, high cognitive, single-focus creation that pushes your skills to their limit and creates unique value. You have a choice. You can be the servant of your inbox, or you can be the master of your output. The shallow work trap. We must define the enemy. Shallow work is anything that can be done while mildly distracted. It's the work everyone sees you doing. It is visible labor, which feeds the validation trap. It makes you look busy, and for many people, looking busy is the ultimate comfort. But this comfort is a trap. You fill your day with meetings, instant replies, and busy work to avoid the difficulty of deep work. The hard single-focus task requires you to face your own inadequacy, your own slow pace, and the complexity of the problem. Your mind prefers the quick, shallow wins of email triage. It's not about being social, it's about being leveraged. That is the key. If you spend all day operating in the reactive state, you are ensuring you only produce results that are mediocre or urgent, never excellent or important. You are trading long-term leverage for short-term relief. You don't need their permission to ignore the noise. You need the courage to prioritize your own excellence. Shallow work pays the bills. Deep work buys the future. Stop settling for merely paying the bills. The time fortress. To achieve deep work, you must build the time fortress. This is the principle of pre-commitment applied to your calendar. You must aggressively block out 1 to 2 hours of uninterrupted, non-negotiable deep work time as the first mandatory action of your day. This time is sacred. It is an unchangeable appointment with your future. The instruction is precise: treat your deep work block as a meeting with the CEO of your most important project. You wouldn't cancel a meeting with a client who controls your success. Do not cancel this meeting with yourself. During this block, you must practice productive isolation. Physical lockdown. Lock your office door. Put on noise-canceling headphones. Digital lockdown. Phone on airplane mode, placed in another room. Close the email client. Close all tabs except the one required for the single task. Communication lockdown. Alert your team or family that you are unavailable for 90 minutes unless the building is on fire. The fortress is necessary because great work requires your mind to achieve flow state. Flow is when your focus is so intense that you lose track of time. It takes 15 to 25 minutes of continuous effort just to enter flow. A single notification, a single ding, destroys that state and forces your brain to reboot the effort. You have a choice. You can live in a perpetual state of start and stop distraction, or you can force the continuity required for high-level output. The power of no. The final defensive mechanism of the unbreakable mind is the power of no. Your time is a zero-sum resource. Every time you say yes to a request, a meeting, or a favor, you are automatically saying no to something else. And for the fragile person, the no is almost always applied to their own deep work. You say yes because you seek validation. You say yes because you fear conflict. You say yes because you want to be liked. This is a weakness. The unbreakable mind uses no as its default answer. You must view your calendar as the physical manifestation of your self-respect. If a request does not directly contribute to the 3 pillars of power or your highest leverage goals, your initial response must be, "I can't commit to that right now." It's not about being rude, it's about being protective. That is the key. Defend your deep work ruthlessly. When you say yes to others, you are often saying no to your own success. You are allowing others to chip away at the foundation you are building. You don't need their permission to say no. You need the conviction to say yes to the version of you that is actually building the future. Shallow work pays the bills. Deep work buys the future. Build the time fortress. Master the power of no. You have now fiercely protected your focus. The final step of mental toughness is understanding that the greatest execution is always silent. It is time to eliminate the final weakness, the need to talk about your process. Chapter 9. Stop talking, start training, the habit of silent mastery. You have done the hard part. You have controlled your emotions. You have established your non-negotiable system. You have protected your time. Now, we finalize the fortress. We address the final temptation of the fragile ego, the urge to speak before you have acted. The fragile person is loud about their intentions. They love the sound of their own plan. They talk about the book they will write, the business they will launch, the body they will build. They confuse the discussion of a goal with the execution of a goal. The unbreakable mind is silent. It understands that energy is a finite resource. It knows that the energy used for bragging is energy stolen from action. The core principle is brutal, but absolute talk is cheap. Sweat is currency. When you talk about your goal, you give away the necessary internal pressure that forces the work. You dilute the motivation. You satisfy the need for validation prematurely. This chapter demands that you adopt the habit of silent mastery. Let your actions be the only microphone you ever need. You have a choice. You can be the person who discusses success, or you can be the person who achieves it. The performance anxiety loop. Why do people talk? They talk because announcing a grand intention provides a premature dopamine hit. Psychologically, the public commitment feels like a small victory. You get the applause for the intention, which reduces the psychological hunger needed to see the work through. This is the performance anxiety loop. You talk to feel good. You talk to seek the comfort of external support. But by talking, you dramatically increase the pressure of the eventual failure while simultaneously reducing the internal fuel needed for the struggle. This loop ensures that the most talked about projects are often the ones that never launch. It is not about secrecy, it is about conserving motivation. That is the key. Your mind doesn't distinguish perfectly between the reward you get from talking about the goal and the reward you get from achieving it. To conserve the necessary tension, the internal desperate need to prove it to yourself, you must keep the process quiet. You don't need their permission to be quiet. You need the discipline to withhold your words. Stop using your intentions as a social status badge. Your commitment is to the result, not the announcement. Talk is cheap. Sweat is currency. Start paying in sweat. The 10,000 reps mentality. Competence is not a flash of genius. Confidence is not a personality trait. Both are the direct result of repetition. They are built one silent, unglamorous, difficult rep at a time. This is the 10,000 reps mentality. Mental toughness is simply the result of having done the hard, boring, invisible work when absolutely no one was watching. The days you sat alone in the time fortress, executing your deep work block, when every emotional signal screamed for you to quit, those are the days that forge the unbreakable core. The training is often difficult. It is often mundane. It rarely provides instant gratification. But that is the point. The lack of immediate external reward forces you to rely solely on your internal metric of excellence. You must fall in love with the process of repetition. You must embrace the grind. The quiet, consistent discipline is the true source of your power. The runner who logs the 7 miles on the wet, dark morning. The programmer who spends 4 hours debugging a single line of code. The CEO who reads the dry, complicated financial reports late at night. These are not actions taken for applause. They are actions taken because they are mandatory to uphold the identity lock. The repetition creates the competence, and the competence creates the confidence. It is not about being charismatic. It is about being competent. That is the key. You don't need their permission to keep grinding. You need to keep showing up consistently for the necessary repetitions. The proof is in the product. Your reward for silent mastery is undeniable objective reality results. When your actions are louder than your self-promotion, the power is self-evident. The product speaks for itself. The improved physique, the profitable business, the completed manuscript, these are unarguable facts. When the result is undeniable, your mind knows its power. You don't need to be told you are great. You have the tangible proof in your hands. This is the internal foundational reward that truly inoculates you against self-doubt and external criticism. It finally solves the validation trap. The person who talks loudly is trying to convince others. The person who executes silently is simply focused on convincing the universe. And the universe only responds to action. Stop describing the house you are going to build. Start showing the completed foundation. Stop debating the theory of the strategy. Start showing the profitable execution. This is your final defense against fragility. The moment you are tempted to talk, you must redirect that energy into one more repetition, one more line of code, one more minute of deep work. Talk is cheap. Sweat is currency. Always pay in sweat. You have now mastered the silent internal discipline required for true creation. You understand that your mental fortress is built in the private, unheralded moments of effort. But listen. A fortress is not built once. It requires perpetual maintenance. The final lesson is not a new habit, but a mandate for eternal vigilance. Chapter 10. The Daily Forging. Never let the edge dull. We are at the final chapter of the blueprint. You have installed the system, forged the identity, and armed yourself with the necessary mental protocols. The danger now is not failure. The danger is success. The most fragile point in any disciplined person's journey is the moment they believe they have arrived. They hit the goal. They see the results. They feel the strength. And they think the work is done. This is the moment your mind begins to soften. This is the moment the edge dulls. Mental toughness is not a destination you reach. It is a system you run. It is a choice you make every single morning. The moment you stop doing the habits, you start losing the fortress. Listen to the final principle of the unbreakable mind: rest is necessary. Complacency is lethal. Rest is restorative. It allows your body and mind to absorb the growth. Complacency is deceptive. It is the slow, quiet erosion of your standards until the system collapses entirely. You do not need their permission to rest. You need the discipline to fight complacency. You have a choice. You can celebrate your victory and ease off, or you can use your victory to demand an even higher standard of yourself tomorrow. The complacency crisis. Complacency is the enemy wearing a badge of honor. It whispers, "You earned this break. You're better than you were. You can afford to skip one day." But the mind you built operates on the principle of the streak of strength. Skipping one day makes the next day easier to skip. Skipping two is a collapse. Complacency is the subtle psychological mechanism that initiates the collapse. It's not about burning out, it's about being consistent. That is the key. The true master knows that the level of effort required to maintain excellence is exactly the same as the effort required to achieve it in the first place. You are always fighting the natural law of entropy. The default is decay. If you are not actively reinforcing your system is decaying. There is no neutral state. Think of the peak athlete. They don't train less after winning the championship. They train smarter and harder because they now have the target on their back. Your internal fortress must operate with the same high alert. You don't need their permission to relax your standards. You need the discipline to hold them higher than ever. Rest is necessary. Complacency is lethal. Choose rest, reject complacency. The review and reset. To ensure you never succumb to the soft drift of complacency, you must establish the review and reset protocol. This is a mandatory 5-minute ritual executed every single evening, without fail. It is a moment of radical self-responsibility where you objectively analyze your execution. This is how you sharpen the edge daily. The protocol has 3 non-negotiable questions. Did I execute my 3 pillars: movement, deep work, planning? This is a simple yes/no check against your established system. No justification allowed. If the answer is no, identify the precise pillar that was missed. What was the single biggest distraction or failure? Objectively identify the moment where you surrendered control, the emotional hijack, the validation trap, or the noise filter failure. What specific point of weakness allowed the system to fail? What is the single most important mandatory task for tomorrow? This links directly to your deep work block. You set the specific target, the minimum viable output, to ensure you wake up with zero inertia. You are programming tomorrow's win tonight. This 5-minute lockdown ensures perpetual forward motion. You address the flaw, you take responsibility for it, and you immediately pivot to tomorrow's action. There is no time wasted in emotional turmoil or aimless planning. It's not about self-flagellation, it's about self-correction. That is the key. You don't need their permission to self-analyze. You need the courage to look at the data honestly. The unbreakable thesis. We end where we began. You did not achieve this mental strength through luck, through genetics, or through external circumstance. You achieved it because you made a choice, the choice to stop proving and start doing. The unbreakable mind is not a gift. It is a system of mandatory habits executed consistently, aggressively, and without apology. The 7 core laws we installed are your new operating code. Validation is a low-interest loan on your self-worth. A feeling is a signal, not a sentence. The option is the obstacle. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. Resistance is not rejection, it is refinement. Consumption is compliance. Creation is power. Blame is a weakness. Responsibility is a weapon. This system is yours. It cannot be taken away, but you must recommit to it every 24 hours. The true measure of an unbreakable mind is not how it handles the catastrophic blow, but how it handles the monotonous demand of the next ordinary day. The work is never finished. The fortress is never secure. The edge must be sharpened daily. My friend, you have internalized the code. Now, the knowledge is complete. The action must be immediate. The choice is yours. The work is mandatory. The work is now. This is the end of the lesson, but it is the beginning of the war. You have the blueprint. You know the price. You have been told clearly and unequivocally that your feelings are not facts, that validation is poison, and that optionality is sabotage. You know you must incinerate the escape routes. You know that commitment is a single-direction street. You know that the default state is decay, and that only relentless, scheduled execution installs the unbreakable operating system. You cannot unhear this. You cannot claim ignorance. The choice is binary. You either forge the fortress, or you continue to live in a fragile house of cards, waiting for the next gust of wind to shatter your potential. Listen to me now. Close your eyes. Do not stop. You have two options. You can replay this audiobook and consume it again as comfort, or you can get up right now and execute the hardest, most necessary thing on your schedule. Stop proving. Start doing. Your mental fortress isn't going to build itself. The work is mandatory. The work is now.